Hello, Martha Wash. Thank you for coming on the channel.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, no problem. Could you just give us a brief background of about your start or how you discovered that you had a voice?
Oh God. Brief. Okay, let's see if I can really break it down. I started singing when I was 3 years old. My godmother told my mother that I was singing in the back seat of a car. My mother, who loved to sing, um, sang in the church choir, so she was the one who really encouraged me to sing. Sang in the church choir, played for the youth choir. I had music all through elementary school, junior high, and high school. And I always knew that I would sing. I just didn't know if it would be professionally and then in what genre of music on top of that. So this is where I am.
All right, and you're from the Bay Area, correct?
Yes.
I think the earliest recordings that I have of you are with the Polytech Choir.
Yeah. Our high school recorded 4 albums, which was totally unheard of during that time. We're talking 1970, 71. Nobody, no school anywhere had recorded albums. I'm not going to say just for the sake of recording albums, but our teacher really encouraged us. We also was able to raise $25,000 for our choir, and we went to Europe for about a month or so and was singing around Europe. So that was something just totally new. I'm sure it's nothing new now, but during that time in an urban school on top of that, but we had the support of the school, our parents, even the mayor of the city at that time. So it was something really, really special for us.
In that school, did you learn anything about singing technique or any of that?
Yeah, my teacher, he taught us all of that. Also, when I was in high school, I was just getting ready to start learning classical music with a private teacher. Unfortunately, I think I was maybe less than a year into uh, the classes, and she passed away. So I did not continue on with learning the classical music, but I still like bits and pieces of classical music.
Okay, so were you training as a mezzo or as a soprano, or you didn't get there yet?
Um, I'm trying to remember. As a soprano, the thing was she didn't want me to sing gospel music and learn classical, sing classical music at the same time. And I said, well, that's kind of hard for me because I have to sing gospel music. I belong to a gospel church and I sing in the choirs and things. So she compromised. She said, okay, go ahead, just don't sing it as hard as you would naturally. I said, okay, fine.
Okay. And so, speaking of gospel, I know your next set of recordings were with a gospel choir. I'm trying to remember your solo on because you and Izora both have a solo on this record that I'm thinking of. I'm trying to remember the name.
I'm me too.
One second. I have it right here. Warren Donnell Hick.
Oh, okay. San Francisco Inspirational Choir. She was she was a member of that choir. They were recording an album at the time. I sang in a totally different gospel choir, but we would all sing together at different church services. We would have musicals once a month, so everybody knew everybody. So Donnell asked me to come in and sing with the choir, and I did a little bit of work on one of the songs that he was recording at the time. So yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, and was it through your choir work that you were able to link up with Sylvester?
No. um, I got a phone call regarding Sylvester to they let me know that there was a audition going on at a particular address and maybe that I should check it out. Well, I assumed it was for auditioning for, say, a studio session singer, something like that. And I went in, and come to find out it was as a to audition as a background singer for Sylvester. Knew of him 2 years earlier because he was the opening act for Billy Preston, who I was a huge fan of. And so when I saw Sylvester for the first time, I was saying, "Oh my God, who is this guy?" I had never heard anybody like him. I it was his sound was just so different for me, and the band was great, and so I just kind of put him in the back of my mind. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm standing in front of him, and I told him that I had seen him at Billy's show. So he told me to go on and sing a song. Uh, one of the musicians that was there was a dear friend of mine. We grew up together in church, so I knew him, just didn't know that he was playing for Sylvester at the time. So he played for me, and after it was over, the two girls, white thin girls that had were there before me and had auditioned, he told them to leave. So, and we talked, and he asked me if I knew of anybody that was as large as I was and that could sing, and I said yeah. And I brought in Izora. So that's really basically how it started off, and the rest went on to be history.
What did you get any backlash from the church because you went and
Yeah,
decided to go on that?
yeah. Yeah, my church is very very conservative, and singing secular music was not a part of their ideals. But I went on anyway. By that time I was grown, so I could basically do what I wanted to do. And funny enough, as time as time went on, I would see some of those same people at some of our shows. So hey, it didn't bother me. I didn't care.
And it was him who gave you guys the name Two Tons of Fun.
Well, now that's really, really up for speculation. It's something I've always stayed out of because Sylvester said he named us. Izora said she named us. My former manager said he named us. So I have no idea, and I don't even care anymore.
So, during your work with him, so for example, like I'm thinking of the Living Proof album, and it's
Mhm.
just the way you guys just turned You Make Me Might Feel Mighty Real into a 15-minute service.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Did you have a hand in helping him arrange the music and the vocals and everything?
No,
Mm.
no. All of that. We basically took the music from all of the songs that we had done, and him and I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Did the arrangements. Well, Eric Robinson, who had written some songs for Sylvester, who also written most of the songs for the first Two Tons of Fun album. He played and did some arrangements for a few of the songs, but for the most part, it was Sylvester and Harvey Fuqua.
Which is a great segue to my next question. So how did you guys end up recording your own, I guess what they be considered solo albums as Two Tons?
Hmm.
How did you guys do that?
Harvey Fuqua, in fact, was the one that said, "You guys need to record your own album." And we said, "Okay, you know, why not?" And again, Eric Robinson wrote most of the songs for that first Two Tons album, and it did well on the charts. We had some hits on there that they're still playing today, especially Just Us. I think that one, and I think "Oh, I Got the Feeling." Those two were big for us. So that started us on Two Tons of Fun, and then segueing into the Weather Girls.
Okay, so speaking of those two albums. I always wondered how much did it cost them to replace the roof after you sang "Taking Away Your Space." That is one of the greatest vocals of all time. Like,
I thank you for that. I appreciate that. Sylvester and Harvey wrote that song, and Harvey gave it to me and said, "Just sing," and I just put my feelings on it, you know, and that was it.
between the last two tons of fun, there's like an interim period. I know you guys leave Sylvester.
Mhm.
So, what spurred the name change from Two Tons to the Weather Girls?
It all had to do with the song "It's Raining Men." If you listen to the beginning of the song, it says, "Hi, we're your weather girls." And when the song came out, there was this big conversation, I'll say, about who the Weather Girls were. Some people were saying it was a new group called the Weather Girls. Others who knew of Izora and myself said, no, that's more than Izora. That's two tons of fun. So that was really funny for a while there. When Paul uh, decided to deal with Columbia Records and the other production company, um, we were offered a contract. And so we decided to change our names to the Weather Girls, move from the West Coast to the East Coast, and in a way, just kind of start all over again. Because by that time, Raining Man had become a huge hit.
I do know it had been shopped around for some years prior to that. How did you guys end up with it?
Paul Jabara, who who wrote the song, him and Paul Schaefer, and he literally begged us to record the song. He got us to his home under false pretenses and gave us lunch and then said, "I want you to hear this song." And it was his Raining Men. And he said, "I want you to record the song." And I kind of looked at Isaiah and I said, "You got to be kidding." He said, "No." He said, "I need you to record the song." He said the Cher turned it down, Barbara Streisand turned it down, Diana Ross turned it down, Donna Summer turned it down. And he said, "I know this song is going to be a hit." He kept saying that. And for all intents and purposes, the song was finished. All it needed was the lead vocals. And so we kind of said, "Okay, Paul, all right," kind of like doing him a favor and stuff. And we went in the studio and recorded the song probably a couple of days later and walked out of the studio and said, "Okay, see you later. We're gone." And that was it. And we went on and continued doing what we were doing and working and stuff. And it really started out as a big hit in the clubs, in the underground clubs, and at long before mainstream radio even picked up on it. So yeah, people knew who we were. They knew the song, but mainstream had not heard of it yet.
So, because the song hit so big, did you guys have to rush in and finish the Success album?
No, that came totally much later on, a few years later on, in fact. Between that time, excuse me, and between It's Raining Men and the Success album, Paul Jabbar put out an album called Paul Jabbar and Friends. Now we were on there, Izora and myself. Whitney Houston was on there. Saida Garrett was on there, and I think a few more other artists. So it was a few years or so. The Success album came, yeah, that came later.
It's Raining Men, Success, huge hit. You guys are everywhere. And so, um, you guys released, I think, two more albums afterwards.
No, Big Girls Don't Cry was the last album.
Okay,
Columbia.
okay. So, and that was there any shift between like the Weather Girls and Columbia between uh those two albums because they're sort of day and night in terms of how.
Just different producers,
Mhm.
I would say.
And while you're in the Weather Girls, you're still doing your work as a session singer.
Off and on, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So after Big Girls Don't Cry, you're doing, more session work. So could you like sort of like give us a brief overview of like what that's like for you? Because I've always wanted to know, like, um, were you when you did Centipede, did they say, Martha, we want you to do this, or did you just go in the booth and just like how does session work?
Well, that was kind of what is- I want to say like a command appearance. Um, because Michael Jackson asked for us, and we went into the studio and did those vocals for him for the Centipede song, and that's basically it. I mean, as far as session singing is concerned, it depends on the producer, what they want. Um, Sometimes it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's minimal. It varies. It definitely varies. Then I used to do jingles on top of that, um, which in essence is kind of the same, although you're singing about products or
Hmm.
whatever. You know,
Oh, I didn't
I
know.
I, I enjoyed that because that was something new for me that I hadn't done before.
What are some of the jingles? I didn't know that.
Oh God. Um, back in the day, Proud Mary, Tina Turner. What else? Ford, the gloves. I can't think of the company. And Black and Decker. I mean, just all kinds of product and stuff. And that's kind of where I learned my chops even more, singing with other professional singers. I think I moved to New York in '84, the in winter of '84. By the mid '85, I was doing jingles. So I was meeting other singers who had been doing it for a while, and I would just kind of lay back. I mean, I would do what I was supposed to be doing, but I'd watch them and how they interacted and what they were doing. So I was learning um, a lot from them, as far as being able to walk in, do what you're supposed to do, and then leave. Basically that's it. As opposed to taking more time than usual, because as we all know, time is money. So if the advertising company is paying for all of this stuff, they want the work done in as least amount of time as possible to save them some money so they can make some money on the product, you know, that kind of thing. So I really appreciate that time and being able to do that and to learn about that.
We all know about the big black box scandal. It goes viral about every 2, 3 months on Twitter. But my question about that is actually not about that incident itself, but I was so by the time the black box scandal happens, everyone knows who you are. You're an industry veteran. When you guys are with Sylvester, released work as Two Tons of Fun, and even the early Weather Girls reviews, a lot of women were saying you guys were like, um, uh, they were like happy to see themselves represented. They
Mhm.
saw themselves in you. A lot of writers and people were praising you guys and saying like, they are redefining beauty standards.
Mhm.
It was a lot of body positive comments. Do you Well,
Eh,
that's from what I saw. Well, it was more, or that's what I read. I'm sorry.
oh,
Um.
okay.
Oh.
Not
Oh.
necessarily.
Really?
Now, no. From from people, let me see. From artists. I'll say, or people that knew us that were in the industry, yes.
Mm.
Still from people that ran the companies, not necessarily, because at a point, it sometimes it was like, okay, well, still, how do we market? I'm going back to Izora and myself. How do we market them? Market us because we're singers. We can sing. We put out some good music. Make it make it work, if you will. But it's gotten better, and I'm happy. I'm definitely happy about it. But I've always felt that talent was last on the line. It was, it wasn't number one, wasn't number two, maybe even not even number three, you know. But and you also you have to be a triple threat. You have to be a triple threat. No, you don't. If what you do is sing and you move people enough, you don't have to dance for your life. You know what I'm saying? Or do these other things. If you can, and we do know of a few artists that are out there right now who are not dancers. All they do is stand and sing, and people love it. They don't care about anything else. You don't have to do all that. Just sing to us, you know. But the more you can do, the more we can make off of you.
So then, so please correct me because I was just doing as much research as I could to prepare for these. So another thing I read is that, well, I know you got the RCA deal after, as a result of everything. So the Martha Wash album, what
Mm-hmm.
was that experience like recording? What was the experience recording that album like for you?
It was fine. It was fine. Um, Brian Alexander Morgan, he wrote some of the tunes for the album, and I think it came out very very well. We got a couple of hits off of it, so I was happy about that. The only problem was I didn't get a chance to go out and promote it as much as I had wanted to because our first promotional stop was in Chicago. Well, I made it to Chicago, but I didn't get to do the show or the listening party, that whole kind of thing, because I wound up getting in an accident like the day before we were supposed to start. And so I had to come back home. I was laid up for about 3 months or so. I hurt my knee. So that kind of put a squash on really trying to promote the first album. But nonetheless, again, there were a couple of good hits off of that song, off of that album.
Which leads to my question. Please correct me. This is just going off every my research. So I read that you signed a multi-album deal as a result. Like, so, and I was once again reading some Billboard records. There was supposed to be a follow-up in like 94 or 95.
Hmm.
Is that was that planned?
Well, RCA went through some changes in BMG and all of that. And so they moved me to a dance label of theirs. But anyway, the second album that came out was called The Collection. So it featured some of my previous hits um, from the first album, a couple of new tracks, and I think a couple of songs from the old Two Tons album and stuff. So that's how it wound up being basically two albums. And then they closed down that label, and that left me with no label. So, hey, I started my own.
Which leads to my next question. Is your experiences with the labels? what motivated you to start Purple Rose?
Yes, since I wasn't signed with the label. I just decided to, and it was some years, I have to say, in between that. My first manager, he passed away, so I was kind of, I'll say, floundering for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Um, and so I just decided I was going to start my own label, just my own little imprint, and put out music whenever I wanted to. And it took me a while. I did put out a single called "You Lift Me Up," but it still took me a while to kind of find myself and figure out really what I wanted to do. In 2009, 2008, I met James Washington, who wound up becoming my manager and business partner. And so he told me, or he asked me, he said, "Okay, you got the record label. What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I still want to record, more music and everything." He said, "Well, okay, let's get started." And that's when we started focusing on my own music. And so the first album that I put out on Purple Rose was called Something Good. And that was in 2013. 2013. Uh, so it's been, hey, the ups and downs of the ups and downs of life. But especially this last album called Love and Conflict, we were supposed to debut it at the South by Southwest Festival in 2020. Well, I think we all know what happened in 2020, so that shut everything down. And so we've just been kind of still kind of toiling away. I have a group called First Ladies of Disco, and we had two hit singles on the Billboard dance charts in the top 10, which we were very, very happy about that, uh, because we're known as legacy artists. We've been here for a while, but still relevant, still working, and still trying to bring positivity to people. And just knowing that we could get to the top 10 on the charts up against Madonna, Cher, and Beyonce, and whoever else was out during that time, that felt really, really good for us and for the label and everything. So we just keep pushing on, and hopefully, possibly by the end of this year, we'll go back in the studio and release another single. And we also released a single on a lady by the name of Lorraine. She is one of the singers with the Ritchie family. We released a single on her called Hope, and so we're just excited to find other legacy artists, people that you don't necessarily hear about, but you remember and wonder what they're doing. If they want to become part of our home, it's cool. But we just keep moving everything forward.
That was actually a good point. I saw you guys last week
Hmm.
at Joe's Pub.
Yeah,
I was like, that was a very good show. So all of you guys watching, if the first ladies are in your town, go. It's a great show. We were
yeah.
actually up and dancing, standing up and dancing. People don't do that
That's,
anymore.
but that's the thing. It's music that, depending on how old you are, you remember the music. You remember where you were when you were dancing to this music. And to the new fans, it's all new to you, but you're enjoying it so much, you want to get up and dance too. I mean, that's the fun of it. It's soul and R&B and disco, and just music that during that time made you want to go to the clubs, just dance as much as possible, and have fun.
So speaking of the clubs, a question that I have. A big discussion in the social media spaces right now is like the difference between house and dance music.
Oh,
How would you? s-
oh God. You're asking the wrong person. Listen, I have always said, and it sounds crazy. Always said, look, if you can get up and dance to it, it's dance music, okay? But disco music, for all intents and purposes, is not gone anywhere. It's still here. It's just morphed into subgenres. Disco went into house and uh, some garage music, even in fact. Then you had drum and bass, and then you had all of these other kind of little subgenres that DJs and producers were working on, to make new sounds and stuff. But it was still coming from the '70s. You know, you add a little here, you take away from there. And then all of that morphed into what people consider EDM now. But there were a lot of DJs out there that were trying to find new sounds and discover new things. So for me, that all uh, that group started with disco music.
That is actually probably the best answer I've ever heard to that question.
Well,
I've,
I mean, really, because from that period into now, especially uh, the late '80s, '90s, uh, especially, yeah, '90s, late '80s, '90s, when the house music and techno music and all of this, even DJs and stuff from Europe, uh, uh, some were bringing stuff from Europe, others were taking stuff over to Europe, so it all kind of meshes together. But all of that started with disco.
and so my last question
Mm,
is so you have your own label,
yeah.
and I know a lot of people associate you with house, dance, disco, but I noticed on especially Love and Conflict,
Hmm.
you know, you've been trying a lot of different themes,
Hmm.
and so it's just like, what is Martha Wash going to try next?
Good question. Um, I'm still hoping I still want to do the gospel album. I still definitely want to do the gospel album because that is uh, the root for me as far as my foundation in singing is concerned. But I have always said, and I will always continue to say, I'm not going to be put into a box. Um, People who grew up with my music mostly just think of me as a dance music artist because that's how I started. That's how I'm not going to end up as. I will always continue to find different types of music because I've always loved different kinds of music. Again, listening to gospel music as a child is my foundation. But as a teenager and listening to music under my pillow, I was listening to the Motown sound, Aretha Franklin. I was listening to rock bands. On TV, I was looking at and listening to the golden era of big band music. So I like that as well. I'm not going to be put into a box and said that's the only kind of music that you can perform. Um, that's why I'm an indie artist with my own label that I can sing and record whatever I want to sing and record. Now, what I'm asking is for the fans to come on the journey with me. A lot of times I have gotten feedback from people who said when they listened to the Love and Conflict album, they said, I don't like this album. I'm not sure about this album. When are you going to put out some dance music? Well, I mean, that's the safety net is the dance music because everybody knows me from doing it. Well, I'm a little bit older now. I've been through a couple of things in my life. You know what I'm saying? So the dancing and everything is fine. Sometimes you have to sit your ass down and think and listen and feel something different than the thumper, thumper, thumper. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I am. And I asked the fans to come on the journey with me. Now, getting back to that person that said they didn't like the album, they came back around and said, I listened to your album again. And you know what? I like it. So sometimes we all have to listen more than once to really get it. Sometimes it takes us more than once, more than twice, even more than three times. That's okay. As long as the person gets something from those songs, it speaks to them in whatever kind of way it needs to speak to them. It inspires them in whatever kind of way it needs to inspire them. Then I'm cool. I'm good.
So, any last things you want to say to the viewers?
That I appreciate everybody's support and to please continue to support indie artists because it's not easy when you're an indie artist and you don't have the machine of these record companies to help you. So whenever you can, support them as much as possible. That's the best that I can say. And I really, really love you for those of you that started all the way back in the 70s. I love you because we're still here, and for the new fans that are following, just getting to know me a little bit. Hello, welcome.
So, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I hope you guys find your way back up here again. Thank you so much, Miss Wash. Have a
Thank you.
great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye bye.